What do you believe the Buffalo Bills need to do to improve next season?
Well, kind of similar to what I brought up with the Cowboys. I'm going to focus on the quarterback here again, and it's Josh Allen. I'm not saying that Josh Allen needs to like completely retool his whole game and he needs to start from scratch and build it up from nothing. I think one thing that he has to improve upon is just his overall decision making, especially in the red zone. Kev, how many turnovers did he have in the red zone this year? I don't know the exact number, but I know it
I
was
can
a
look it
lot.
up. Yeah.
He was one of the most turnover prone quarterbacks, not only in the red zone, but just in general. And listen, I know when it comes to Buffalo's offensive system, they let Josh rip it. It is not uncommon to hear Josh Allen throw the ball 35, 40, 45, sometimes even 50 times plus a game. And then when you add in all the touches that he'll add by running the football as well, because Buffalo does not hold back from him running the ball at least probably 5 to 10 times a game. He's a major component of the offense. And honestly, the offense really lives and dies by him. And when it comes to the amount of turnovers that he had this year, it was quite surprising. And it's not really uncommon to see guys who are in their mid 20s, basically either in their prime or on their cusp of their prime, go through that like mid adolescence as an NFL quarterback. And, maybe this was just one of those years where he took some chances, it didn't work out, and maybe this is a learning experience for him. So, one of the things that I think Josh Allen, probably will do this offseason is just assess the overall decision making that he had in certain moments, especially in the red zone. You just can't turn the ball over as much as he did in the red zone and have a successful season consistently. I mean, granted, Buffalo made the playoffs, but Buffalo was a Super Bowl contending team in my eyes and Kev's eyes as well. And the fact that they got knocked out in a divisional round, hell, they damn near got knocked out in the wild card round by a third string quarterback in the Dolphins. So, there's definitely going to be some things that Josh is going to learn throughout his NFL career as a quarterback. And I think last year is going to be one of those examples where he's going to look back and definitely going to have to step up from the amount of turnovers that he had. And, I think as time goes on, he will improve upon that. And I think this offseason, I think he'll devote a pretty significant amount of time to improve from those mistakes that he made by turning the ball over this past season. And Kev, another thing that I'm going to focus on here is their free agent list. There's a lot of free agents that they're going to have to attend to this offseason. And I'm actually going to go through the list here. I'm going to list some notable players that the Bills are going to have to contend with on whether or not to keep them or let them go. You got Jordan Poyer, huge free safety, one of their biggest defensive players. He's a free agent this offseason. You've got Tremaine Edmonds, one of their most critical linebackers on that defensive side of the ball. He's a huge player for them. He's a free agent this offseason. And then you look at the rest of the list. You look at some other guys. You could look at Dane Jackson. You could look at Devin Singletary. You could look at Jamison Crowder. I mean, there's some decent guys to list here. Jordan Phillips. Case Keenum's their backup. I'm just saying, like, when it comes to their free agent list, they're going to have to make some decisions on these guys. And based on where Buffalo's cap space is right now, granted, we are in February and things are, subject to change, especially if guys start adjusting their contracts, if they start restructuring their contracts. But, Buffalo's going to be faced with some interesting free agent choices this offseason. And look, maybe some guys are going to hit the open market and test to see what they can get in return in a contract negotiation with some other teams. So, Buffalo's going to be presented a challenge this offseason to try to bring back some of their core players, especially Tremaine Edmonds and Jordan Poyer. If they lose any of those guys, that defense is definitely going to take a step back because both of those guys are extremely valuable, and they are a major component of their defensive core. So, overall, Buffalo is going to have an interesting offseason. The free agent list is something that they're going to have to contend with, and Josh Allen, I think, is just going to have to improve his overall decision making. But I'll leave it to those two things that they need to address, and I'll let Kev address some other things that the Bills need to take care of this offseason.
Excuse me while I chew my Pop-Tart. To answer your question about Josh Allen, he had 5 interceptions in the red zone. He had 19 total turnovers for the year, which led the league in total turnovers. So just to put that into perspective, Josh Allen was careless with the ball, not only in the red zone, but overall, which is insane. So in terms of what I believe the Buffalo Bills need to do, it's got to be the offensive line. They were in the bottom tier of protection. They were in the bottom tier of, obviously, overall pass blocking. And then when you talk about the run game, that's got to be a little bit more dealt with on the offensive play calling side. But I would still say that they have struggled to run block because when it comes to Devin Singletary, James Cook, Naeem Hines, and even before that, when they had Zach Moss, they were very inconsistent in terms of the holes that they were able to provide those backs. So that offensive line, I know they were hurt this year, but in terms of depth, maybe even adding some additional veteran players to help bolster that line, Josh Allen is one of the more mobile quarterbacks in the NFL. If they're going to continue to have him roll out, if they're going to continue to have quarterback draws, he is going to need bigger holes. He's going to need to get into the second level without getting hit by a defensive tackle and defensive end. And that starts with the line of scrimmage. So for me, that's pivotal. Second for me has got to be the offensive play calling. I was just talking about that a second ago. Josh Allen does not need to run the ball 12 to 15 times a game, and your running backs in your backfield on your bench don't need to have a combined total of 15 attempts. When it comes to Josh Allen, you need him to survive. You need his arm more than you need his legs. Yes, being a dual threat quarterback is critical and important, but when it comes to longevity, you're not going to have Josh Allen for many more years if you let him continue to take these hits. So when it comes to play calling, I know that Brian Dable went to New York. I know Ken Dorsey is now the offensive coordinator. You have to realize moving forward, if you want him to make it to the end of the year, if you want him to make it consistently into the playoffs and hopefully make it to an AFC championship or a Super Bowl, you're going to have to protect him, yes, with the offensive line, but you're going to have to keep him upright from play calling alone. Hand the ball off. Let Singletary, let Cook, let Hines do what they need to do because they are the running backs. There are very few and in between teams, or far and in between teams, that quarterbacks lead their teams in rushing attempts that are not the Baltimore Ravens. So until you keep him safe and have him get into a rhythm in passing, you're going to continue to struggle. And then finally, we just talked about offense. It's going to continue to be on that mindset for me. You are going to need wide receiver depth. Stephon Diggs cannot carry a franchise by himself. Gabriel Davis, to me, although he had a career year, is not a consistent enough number 2. Everybody fell in love with him in the AFC divisional round against the Chiefs last year when he had 3 touchdowns and over 100 or over 200 yards. But outside of that, he has games where he shows up. He has games where he disappears. You're going to need somebody outside of Gabriel Davis, or maybe even someone to replace Gabriel Davis as that number 2 definitive wide receiver. Yes, they have Dawson Knox. Yes, they have Isaiah McKinney. Yes, they have Naeem Hines. But Josh Allen needs additional weapons. If he continues to have those weapons, I feel like they will run the ball less with him and continue to have him sit into the pocket. Am I telling him not to rush the ball? Absolutely not. That's what makes him Josh Allen. You got to minimize the hits. You got to minimize the opportunities for him to get injured. So adding more talent outside, I feel will make him more comfortable, and that will make defenses have to man up or drop it into zone, and that's going to leave a lot of holes in the middle of the field. That's going to leave a lot of opportunities for the offensive line to push that line of scrimmage because so many people are dropping back into coverage, which makes it easier for the running backs to do what they need to do and, of course, create play action for Josh. So, again, overall, got to be offensive line, got to be play calling, and it's definitely got to be wide receiver depth for me.